Hi guys, BellaDonna Black here, and this story is from the subreddit Let's Never Meet. So, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. I was 15 when this relationship started, and I broke up with him sometime during my 17th year. He was 17 when we started dating, barely 20 at the time of breaking up. I was in a relationship, and for the first few months with this guy, and everything seemed great. As more time passed, the guy got more possessive of me. He'd want to know where I was, who I was with, what I was doing, 24/7. Whenever I mentioned it, he'd just say he cared about me and was worried. Eventually, this led to a lot of physical violence, and I finally got the nerve to leave him. I texted him to break up with him. I was too scared to do it in person, because I'd tried to before and it was just too violent. Anyway, the day we broke up, he called my phone maybe 50 times in an hour. He completely filled up my voicemail, and he texted me so much that my phone was auto-deleting messages from when he first began to text me. He even called my school within the hour of breakup, pretending to be my dad. Thankfully, I lived in a small town, and the office worker who picked up the phone actually knew my dad, so they informed him of legal consequences, and he told the office worker he was going to kill himself, and a bunch of stuff like that. He actually ended up jumping out of a moving car on the highway, going 45 miles per hour or so. The resource officer from my school had called other officers to check on him, and I was in the middle of it seemed like. I had to tell the resource officer everything that was going on. I left out why we broke up though, so I was there when he called other officers and all. I think I was in shock. Really, I expected problems breaking up, but never anything like this. Anyway, the ex went to a mental hospital, and I heard nothing from him the whole month he was in there. His mama called to let me know what happened. She was unaware why he had done that at that point. After the first week or so, I really thought, hey, it's all over. This wasn't as bad as it could have been. Then I started getting phone calls from him, 1 or 2 an hour. He'd leave blank voice messages, and he'd send me maybe 20 texts a day, mostly apologising and wishing me well. I never answered any calls or texts of his. This kept going on for maybe a month before I started noticing him parked outside my work. I worked at the pool, so at first I tried to rationalise. He was just going for a swim, or used the small gym we had, except I never saw him inside the building, and he would be in his car when I left work. It was around 2 hours after it shut down. It got to the point where I actually talked to my boss about it, and my boss had the police come and talk to him. You weren't allowed to use the parking unless you were a customer anyways, and my boss wouldn't allow me to go outside the building alone while at work either. I was a janitor. We had to do all sorts of things sometimes. After the police had talked to him 3 or 4 times, he stopped. The calls and texts slowed down to just a few a day, so I thought I was in the clear. Then I noticed him in the school parking lot, the one I always parked in, waiting every day when I got out of school. Mind you, he had graduated from a different school already. I got out of school early because of work release. There was only a handful of other students who left at the same time I did. Again, I was scared, so I told the resource officer at the school. The officers talked to him, and they told him he wasn't allowed on school property anymore, and the resource officer gave him his personal cell number for me to call if I saw him at school again. By this time, I honestly thought it was all over. He couldn't come to my work or school, and I'd moved from my nan's house to my parents' house during the time he was in rehab or whatever, so I felt pretty safe. Weeks passed since I saw him. Then I started seeing headlights through my bedroom window at different times throughout the night, and I began getting letters from me at my parents' house from him around the same time. I started getting more calls and texts than ever. He was even calling and leaving messages on my parents' house phone. So I left my parents' house to stay with my aunt and cousin for a few weeks. Again, same thing. My dad and aunt both went to the police, explained the situation, and there wasn't really much they could do unless he started trespassing, and that it was hard to have enough evidence to prove he was stalking me. At this point, Things were bad enough for me to delete all my social media accounts, my email accounts, and I had to change my phone number. I graduated high school and got a new job not long after I changed my number and everything, so I thought it was all over. I was even starting to date my now husband at the time. Almost a year passed with no word or sign from him. Then I started getting calls and texts from him again. Now my husband was getting messages via Facebook from him. These messages were completely vile. A few more months down the road and 2 phone numbers later, I started seeing his car parked in my new job parking lot in the evenings again. I was beginning to get very stressed and over-emotional, and I ended up quitting my new job. I just couldn't handle it. I was absolutely paranoid. I was constantly looking behind me at the rearview mirror whenever I drove somewhere. I keep the blinds and curtains closed, and all doors in the house and car stayed locked, whereas before everything was open. I stayed with my now husband at his family's house more often than not, because I was scared to go home. My parents were gone often, and I couldn't handle being alone all the time. I started having panic attacks, and I never got a full night's worth of sleep. I adopted a dog to keep me company and help me feel safer, but I was still a nervous wreck more often than not. Every time my car got keyed or I received a nasty threatening letter, text, voicemail or email, I went to the police. They couldn't do much, but I ended up getting a restraining order where he wasn't allowed within so many feet of me and couldn't contact me. It didn't work. He'd parked farther away and sit on the hood of his car and just be there. The letters and texts did stop from his number, but I started getting threatening or nasty messages from bizarre numbers I didn't know. The police couldn't prove he had sent them, so they never stopped. At this point, I don't think I ever went outside from my parents' house. If I was there, I was never alone. If my parents left, I left, and stayed with my dog and husband's family at their house. My husband got a job offer a couple of hours away from my hometown. We jumped on it. The only people who knew we were moving was the family, and thankfully, his grandma even helped us to buy a home in the new town. Both of us changed our numbers again, as did my parents and Nan. I haven't heard anything from my ex since then, and I've lived in my new place almost a year now. I think it's finally over. I even made a new Facebook to talk with some of my friends from high school again. Even though I feel like it's finally over, I still keep the curtains in our home shut, doors locked at all times, and I won't put anything personal on my Facebook. I even sold the old car I used to drive, just in case. I feel ridiculous, but I'm scared he'll find me again. So, dear ex, let's never meet again. Hi guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and subscribe to my channel. You can also check out my Facebook page and my Twitter. Both links will be found in the description below.